next presenter, Paul Alfrey. Paul is the founder of Balkan Ecology project and the Polyculture project. Paul has been practicing and teaching regenerative landscape design for the last 14 years and have worked as a freelance arborist in the UK for 20 years. He currently runs a plant nursery, market garden and polyculture research program and consults and designs for landowners and farmers across Europe.
Excellent. So yeah, first of all, thanks everyone for participating, for joining the conference, and to Pavlo and Jennifer for inviting me. Really appreciate it. It's great to see all the other presenters as well and to hear about what's going on. There's been some excellent presentations, so thanks everyone. So I'm just going to present a apple polyculture versus monoculture long-term study design that I've just been working on this week, which we're hopefully going to implement this April. So just to overview the presentation, I'm just going to start off with an intro to our project and the trial gardens, look at the aim of the study, look at the trial garden, the 4 trials, what we'll record, shortcomings of the study, and just to see whether we can encourage some participation in the study. If you have any questions, just put them in the chat box at any point. It should come up, so just feel free to interrupt me whenever. This is kind of like a discussion as well as a presentation, so I'm looking for feedback. You know, I'm not a professional researcher. I've had no training in kind of how to do these studies. It's just amateur science, so I'd appreciate the opinions and feedback from you pros out there, if there's any pros listening. So just to start off, intro to our project. Our mission is to develop and promote practices that can produce food and other resources for humans while enhancing biodiversity. So you can kind of find out a little bit more about what we do. We've got like website here. There's some stuff on the research we've already been doing. There's who we are, so I'm not going to go on about that. You can check that in your own time. If you wish. So the whole purpose of our study is basically to make a comparative study between growing apple in polyculture versus growing apple in monoculture. Let's just see what's going on with the chat. Is that someone chatting? No. Yeah, so what we'll record for comparison is the cost and time to establish a apple polyculture versus a apple monoculture, cost and time to manage, the biodiversity within each kind of unit, so that would be botany and invertebrates, soil health and fertility, biomass production, and tree growth and yield. So we're going to choose apple as our main species. This is the trial garden. So we're based in Shipka, Bulgaria, and you can see this sliver of land here. It's about 350 meters squared. We're in DFC borderline CFB, Cope and Climate classification, 5B conservative, 7A risky. We're at altitude 42 latitude north, 5 meters above sea, 310 millimeters of rain per year. All right. Yeah, we've got winds coming from the northwest, northeast, and yeah, you can. I'll share this slideshow with everyone, so you can click here and kind of see where the map is. We've got various different trial gardens, and this one is when that loads. Yeah, it's just here. So the way we've set it up, this we've got these 4 plots where we're going to try out these different trials, these different combinations, and each plot is more or less going to experience equal environmental conditions. The area is relatively flat. You can see there's a very mild slope from north to south and a very and no slope at all from east to west. And you can see here, this is how we're going to fit our 4 treatments in. So this is just a bit about the apple we're going to be focusing on. It's red cap, it's the cultivar. We're going to be using feathered whips, which are generally bigger than a whip, but with like well-developed side branches. The second year on graft, and the rootstock is going to be MM106. And we're going to select plants that are equal shoot and root biomass to start with. So 4 trials, we've got this polyculture here. Polyculture 1 is basically the tree with 2 nitrogen fixing shrubs, which is going to be Elaeagnus umbellata. Polyculture 2 is a much more complex polyculture, and this is more for kind of garden scale, or like a school, maybe a school garden or something. It's quite a lot going on, so it's not really suitable for large scale, broad scale use. Then our third trial will be an organic, so it's just basically the tree with the ground cover native plants. In fact, the ground cover native plants are included in each trial. And then we've got a conventional. So the difference between organic and conventionals will be doing all of the sprays and fertility treatments that are organically certified. And for conventional, we're going to use all of the evil stuff, right? The herbicides. We'll see. You can see here each plot is around 56.2 meters squared. So we just have a little closer look at each trial. So the first trial, which is the tree with the nitrogen fixing shrubs, basically I've kind of designed it so that this is something that you could scale up. So this is an example of how it would look within the orchard. You've got your fruit trees here, spaced at 5.5 meters apart. Then you've got like this strip here would be like a wildflower strip, which is the planting strip. Then you'd have a 2.5 meter gap between your nitrogen fixing shrubs, and then a 5.5 meter gap between the trees, and then that would just repeat, right? So all of the dimensions are here. Just one thing to note with this polyculture one, you've actually got tree pit bulbs as well. So when you plant, there's a variety of different bulbs planted with each tree. So yeah, that's how polyculture 1 looks and how it would fit within an orchard layout. So this dimension here, a compact utility tractor would be able to work easily in such a orchard layout for mowing. So polyculture 2, this is the intensive polyculture, which is only really practical for gardens or small market gardens, schools, parks, small scale landscaping. It's going to be high maintenance. And here we've got our tree, the apple tree. The shrub layer is a red currant, a black currant, and we've got our nitrogen fixing shrubs, the Elaeagnus umbellata at the back here. The herb layer, we've got Feniculum vulgare, which is fennel, really good plant for beneficial insects. We've got comfrey for biomass and kind of taking those nutrients from the subsoil. Oreganum vulgare, which is a great late pollinator in our area. And a circle of Allium tuberosum, which we're just putting in because they're tasty and possibly have some role in repelling pests. On the ground layer, we've got a kind of spring ephemeral, which is wild garlic planted quite just distributed in this region where the shrubs sit, and then the native cover, which is just the existing vegetation basically. And then our bulb layer, so this is the same bulb layer that will go in the first polyculture. It's just some local native, actually this one's not native, but these two are just native bulbs that come up in early winter. For the organic cultivation, it's just the tree with the ground cover and the full works of organic synthesized products. So all fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides and fungicides. And the conventional is the full works of the synthesized proprietary products, non-organic. So this is what we're going to be recording. We'll do a soil physical analysis, and this test will be taken every 3 years, and we're going to start off with just the physical analysis of the soil. This is based off the Northern Rivers soil card, health card. It's just like really easy physical observation of the soil to see kind of what condition it's in. And we'll just, every 3 years, we'll just kind of move this around and then it will cycle back round. This is going to be a long-term study, you know, as long as we can manage to keep going with it. So that's the basic plan. And we'll also do soil mineral analysis. So these will be taken annually, and that's NPK, so that's nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, magnesium, calcium, and the soil organic matter. Maybe some more, we'll see. It's quite costly. We've got other soil tests going through, so we want to keep the budget down. And then we'll take and that will be based on 8 samples randomly taken in each plot area. We'll have a botany survey. So this is basically just photographs of all of the vegetation. We'll identify the species and record these on the first week of every month. I'm getting a message saying that my internet connection is not stable, but hopefully you guys can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you sometimes patchy, but it's okay. You can continue.
Great, thanks, Pablo. So that's the botany. So this will be recorded in all of the plots, right? The botany. Then we'll be doing invertebrate surveys. So the idea here, we'll do 2 surveys every Thursday and Friday, the second week of May, July, and September. And again, we'll be doing these in each trial plot, and we'll be using the sweep net, vegetation beating. So you've got 10 minutes of that, 10 minutes of the vegetation beating, and we'll have 4 pitfall traps in each plot. And we'll just kind of count the different species, and hopefully we'll identify them. At least we'll get them to group if we can. But entomology is quite difficult, and entomologists that we've used in the past, it's been quite expensive, so prohibitive for us to record it really accurately. And biomass, we'll be doing the amount of biomass that each trial produces, and this will just be the mowings. So the mowing kind of pattern here would be, you know, between the nitrogen fixing shrubs and the tree, and in this area. So everywhere that's green is going to be mowed basically. So there'll be more mowing in the organic and conventional, and we'll just weigh that biomass. We'll also be weighing the trimmings from the nitrogen fixing shrubs, and this will just be another record. Right? And the Elaeagnus umbellata, the shrubs will be cut and kept trimmed to about 1 metre in width, 1.5 metre in height. Okay. The growth and development, so we're going to use the BBCH scale 1. This is something that Simon Lupai, who has been helping me design the study, gave me yesterday, and this is, so we're probably going to use this to record the development, and then in terms of growth, we'll record the girth of stem at base and new growth at the end of the season, number of flowers, and then obviously the harvest, when the harvests start coming in. So we'll record all these for each trial. The management, so it's basically the time and cost to manage each trial. This will be like fertility, mulching, irrigation, weeding and mowing, pruning. The organic and conventional will be slightly different because we'll have the application of recommended fertility additives and the spraying, which actually seems, just from the little research I've done, because I've got no experience with spraying at all, it's actually quite substantial, like sometimes up to 20, maybe more times per year. So that's going to be interesting learning that side of things. Yeah, the irrigation and establishment. So when we're kind of building the plots, planting them out, we'll work out the time and the costs of the plants, materials, labour, and we'll have all that recorded as well. Yeah, so that's the idea. That's a general idea. So some of the shortcomings that we've kind of been thinking about this for the last week or so, and obviously it would be cool to have replicates of each trial. So we're hoping that we can find other people in similar biomes or to run the trial simultaneously. I don't know whether anyone has the resources and time and availability to do this. But first of all, I think we need to just tighten up the design of the experiment, of the trial. So it's kind of, like I say, we've got no formal training. So any kind of feedback regarding the design of the trial is very welcome. We're planning to start this in April 2020. So, if we don't get any feedback, we'll pretty just go with what we've got. Maybe make a few tweaks. I've got to write the protocols for a lot of the things we're going to be studying yet. So it's not really finely tuned, but that would be great to have replicates going on in different places. Another thing, the proximity to wild areas is going to impact the invertebrate measurement of the organic and conventional plots, because obviously, in a vast monoculture, the vegetation in the centre, or the plants in the centre, are going to be much more isolated from biodiversity, or depending on where the location is. So they're just a couple of things that I was just trying to work out today. But yeah, if anybody has any if there's anything that is obviously kind of obvious problems with the trial, then just let me know, because that was the whole idea of doing this presentation, to sort of get some feedback. And once we have the design that is suitable, we're looking for other people to run it simultaneously. So if you're interested, send us an email, or if you know someone that's interested, or someone who has the potential to do it, then just let me know. So we've got 10 minutes. So if anyone's got any kind of feedback, then the idea was to sort of have a discussion here. So the next 10 minutes will be great. Or any questions?
Thank you very much, Paul. I just would like to emphasize how I appreciate your effort and how many efforts to do some research, some science in the permaculture community. So just like maybe a short feedback that I don't know who are currently in your team, and it would be very good to have some researcher, or at least some student, because this is something really useful, at least what the student researcher can do.
Yeah, we've got a couple of researchers joining us actually this year. They're not really. I think one of them is into more conventional agriculture, and the other guy is into forestry. He's done some research on that, so I'm looking forward to their input. And also, just like to say thank you to Simon Lupai and Eva Goodman, who both worked at Feeble, the Swiss organisation. They've been really helpful as well. So, but yeah, it will be great to get a researcher on board, someone full-time, kind of working on this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. And I think that you have a question, yeah? We have a question from Melissa.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you might have shown this in the slides, but I'm wondering if the plots that you have there are close to natural or semi-natural areas or wild areas, or if they're...
Yeah, so basically I'll show you the plots here. So all right, can you see where we're at?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is basically the plot, and yeah, it's in a wild area. So we've got some kind of intensive agriculture going on here, but this is the land we're working on.
Okay. So these area, like, they look from above like not quite forested areas, but what are they? What's the composition of the? If you move the hand up or down.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are these areas? What sort of trees are these, or?
Yeah. So this vegetation, we've got really good records of all of this vegetation actually.
Okay.
It's like, this is like mixed species, like grassland. It's grazed, and there's around 30 to 40 different species of plants growing there throughout the year. And here is like typical kind of European emergent woodland, like hawthorn, Rosa canina, Prunus spinosa. That's the kind of patchy stuff. And in the more kind of dense woodland, I think you've got like cornus mass, some hornbeam, elms, walnuts. There's quite a lot of fruit trees in this area as well, because this is basically the like kind of the equivalent to like European allotments for the people from the village here.
Okay.
So yeah, it's quite diverse. It's already in good condition from a kind of biodiversity point of view.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any questions from online participants? Then I have a question. When you select plants to attract pollinators, did you consider like what were your main consideration? Did you consider to cover the periods outside of the apple tree bloom and outside of the blooming period of available vegetation? Like, what was your considerations?
Yeah, absolutely. So the bulbs are all early flowering, and there's like 2 early flowering species before these are kind of to attract the bees very early in the season, and then we've got like a late flowering crocus in there as well. The funiculum flower way after the apple tree. Yeah, I mean, there's no crossover between the plants we've put in and when the apple pollinates. So it's the idea is to kind of reduce competition during the apple flowering time.
Mm-hmm. And I see, yeah, thank you, Paul. And I see there is a question from Lucas, so you can turn your microphone and ask.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Hi, Lucas.
Oh, this is absolutely awesome work you are doing. Your place. I would like to ask a question about all the surroundings that you've showed on Google Earth. So these were the places that were previously cultivated by villagers living next to it, right?
That's right, yeah.
Okay. Have you considered analyzing fungi composition in the soil? Because it would be very good indicator of what is going on in the soil.
Yeah, so we did send some samples off for like microbiology analysis, but we sent like 2 samples, exactly the same samples, to 2 different research to 2 different labs, and we came back with really different results. So after that, I haven't tried again, but you know, I think we were kind of going for budget analysis. So maybe if we spent a bit more, we'd have got a better result. But yeah, it's like to get a really good, some of the most expensive analysis of the soils for like microbes can be up to like €100. So
yeah,
it's just not within.
That's true. That's true. It's expensive.
Yeah, but yeah, it would be really interesting to do that, to sort of take a look at what's going on at soil level as well. We're trying to design these experiments to be as affordable as possible and as replicable as possible. Like this one's the most complex one we've done. But generally, with the sort of trials we do, you can, if you've got the will and the time, you could do it yourself. You know, that's the idea, to have this kind of sort of citizen science approach, where like you don't need to be a specialist to do it. But yeah, it would also be great to get some professional researchers in and who've got like budgets from universities and stuff, because that would just add an extra kind of layer to it all, an extra dimension.
Yeah. Can you tell a bit about local microclimate? Is it changing throughout recent years? Because what we've experienced at my place is that 5 years ago we had this very damp weather. The fields were flooded with water, and now we are experiencing major drought events, like for example 3 to 4 months without raindrops. So the microclimate of our place is drastically changing, and I would also like to know what's your observations at your place?
Yeah, it seems kind of predictably unpredictable, if you know what I mean. It's like it doesn't seem to be completely out unusual. Like we've been here about 14 years, and it's like every now and again you'll get a summer with no rain for say 15 weeks, maybe even longer, and every now and again you'll get a winter with like the most intense Arctic winds, you know. So I haven't noticed any patterns, and just kind of looking at the kind of climate data we've got, it doesn't seem to be out of the ordinary. But you know, I don't. Hopefully, we're going to get a weather station put in this season, so we can start kind of tracking it ourselves. But it doesn't to be anything firm. I haven't noticed any pattern. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, and there is one more question.
One more question, or you were saying that you were thinking of doing other trials in other plots, maybe different countries, different parts of the country you're in.
Yeah.
That's, I guess, an idea or suggestion which you've probably thought of already. It would be interesting to see the outputs or benefits in an area that isn't quite so biodiverse. So if you know of any apple orchard or monoculture apple orchards that aren't in such a well-maintained area in terms of conservation.
Yeah, that would be great.
Doing a study.
Yeah, I mean, like we're trying
culture and seeing what the influence is and comparing it to your plot could be an interesting way to do one study.
Definitely, that'd be awesome. We're trying to get like something going on in one of these plots. We've got a little bit of land somewhere around here, I think it is. So maybe in the future we'll kind of do something here in comparison. So we'll have two trials going on, like one in this sort of area. But even still, we're still kind of, you know, this is all wild. The great thing about Bulgaria is, like, you know, you've got some kind of wilderness pretty close to you. So having it like in a like seriously like ecologically degraded area would be fantastic.
And an ongoing active monoculture apple orchard somewhere else as well, and looking at, I'm not sure if there are many.
Yeah, around here, I don't think we've got many in this area. There's a big kind of monoculture peach thing going on.
Maybe even in a different country, in a more industrial setting.
Yeah. I mean, the more I think the more replicates you've got, the better it will be. Obviously, there's some challenges there that everyone's kind of doing the same treatments around the same time. But I think just discovering general patterns and like observations is going to be valuable in itself. It would be quite nice to coordinate this in different countries and different biomes. So yeah, if there's anyone that you know that wants to participate, then yeah, we'd be really happy to kind of cooperate. I've got like some sheets where we're recording everything, so I've got quite a lot of the kind of infrastructure for the design done. Just need to tune up the details. So I'd be happy to share all of that. So just drop me an email and yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So we have two more questions, but now we also have a time for break. So what I propose that I will connect with two more presenters, and then you can keep discussing questions during the break, if it's okay with everyone. So do we have Sonia here? Sonia we don't have. And also we don't have Luba Marhitai. So Ira, if you could just call her and remind that her presentation is approaching.
Mm-hmm. I will call you. Call her now.
Thank you very much. Okay. So you can continue discussion. So there are some questions in chat. So probably, Paul, you can see them and read and answer. And there is one person who wanted to connect and comment about your experiment and apple growing.
Yeah, I can't see the chat. Sorry.
Okay. Maybe then I can just read it for you. So one question was about Just 1 second. You mentioned trim it Eleagnus umbrellata to 1.5 meters. So when do you trim and do the shrub fruit after that?
Yeah, so in the beginning, when they're young, there'll be some formative pruning, which is basically getting it to the shape that you want it. It's just like basically taking off the apical buds, and that will encourage ramification, I think it's called. And then I think pruning them every autumn would be good, or even spring. And you're going to lose quite a lot of the flowering tips, but I've been doing these kind of pruning experiments on these shrubs for a while, and you always get some fruit. So yeah, you can still get some fruit from that. By the way, that Eleagnus umbellatus is probably not suitable for North America because it's on the invasive species list. So that wouldn't be something that you would replicate over in the States.
And maybe Chris can connect via microphone and give his comment.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Hi,
can.
Chris.
Hey, Paul, how you doing?
Yeah, good, man.
Yeah, great to hear from you again. Yeah, this is something that I've read a lot of research about, actually. I've just completed a postgraduate certificate to do with research in agroecology. So that was actually inspired by your good self. So this timing is kind of interesting. So yeah, a couple of specific things popped up, so I thought I'd just share them. One of the interesting things that I came across in my research is there's been quite a few studies comparing conventional with organic, and organic actually has fallen down in terms of the sustainability criteria, and quite a few studies that kind of really pricked my ear, and I really looked into it. And so one of the big issues is regarding the actual end product of the apple.
Okay.
So basically the question would be, are you trying to produce apples that are basically inviting for kind of like a market customer to buy? Or are you looking to basically produce juice, in which case the biggest issue that all apple growers have when they're growing apple trees together is scab, because that is very off-putting to people who want to buy apples, basically.
Yeah.
And that is basically the biggest aspect of the regime for people who are spraying, whether they're spraying conventionally or organically. And so that'd be quite interesting just to kind of flag that up at this point. Because it could slightly alter the dynamic of the entire project, depending on how you proceed. And actually could. So to give you an example, I have visited an organic orchard where they actually didn't bother registering with the Soil Association, and they instead chose to spray with garlic and seaweed. But they didn't care about the fact that they were getting scab, because it has no bearing at all on the quality of the actual taste of the fruit. But they produced entirely juice, and that's their kind of business model, and that seemed to be a really sensible way to tackle this issue. So that for me was something quite, it was quite interesting for me at the outset of my research. So I thought I'd just flag that up. Happy to follow up on that privately.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I think once we've got the yield, once we've actually got the yields and harvest measured, then I think we'll definitely take that into account. And then when you could say, look, obviously, I think someone else mentioned this as well about the spraying for like the cosmetic appearance.
Yeah.
So that would sort of factor into the discussion, I suppose, at the end, to say, look, okay, this system works, but not for shelf-worthy produce.
Yeah,
but,
because the other thing as well is that they're finding that where they are, even on organic orchards, because they're permitted to actually use chemicals, they're permitted to use copper and sulfur-based chemicals. So these are synthetic chemicals that basically, this has been a kind of like I'd say it's fairly controversial, but people think they're eating chemical-free produce, but they're not. They're eating stuff that's actually had some chemicals that are permitted. And now they're actually finding that the copper and sulfur is building up in the soil. So then that invites questions about the impact on the kind of microbial life and all those other things that you're looking at as part of this study, which is kind of fascinating. So that'd be another thing to flag up. So if you're looking to test soil and you're spraying copper-based or sulfur-based products that are basically acceptable according to the Soil Association, it'd be quite interesting to measure that over time, possibly around the drip line, sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, my suspicion is that there isn't going to be much difference in invertebrate diversity between the conventional and the organic, because all of the stuff you use on organic kills everything, you know, as the same as the conventional stuff. So I think that's kind of what I've seen in other orchards as well. So I think that will be quite, because I think the organic thing is a bit of greenwashing going on there. Yeah, it'd be nice just to sort of take a look at it and see for yourself what's going on. But yeah. That's really, that's great, Chris. We should talk more on that.
Cool. All right.
Can I ask?
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you,
Chris. Can I ask you that?
Oh yeah.
That example you just gave, was that an organic farm that you were talking about, or registered with the Soil Association only?
They are the ones that were spraying with the garlic and seaweed.
Yeah.
Were they organic? I think yeah, basically they're organic, right? But they basically said he's quite coming from quite a long farming family, and he was just basically like, it's not worth it for me to actually register as organic, because firstly I'm not going to use any chemicals whatsoever, and secondly he's selling to the local market, and so he's selling to kind of like organic supermarkets. So he's basically following the model of almost like a direct sale approach. So he has events on the orchard as well. So he invites people in, so people know, you know, what they're buying and they kind of value it. So so to him, the Soil Association thing is kind of irrelevant.
And the example with the synthetic inputs that you just gave,
yeah,
a farm that's actually registered as organic in some way, or is it just that's just a technique they're using under an idea that they're sustainable?
Yeah, so this is the thing that basically really sort of sucked me into this kind of realm as part of my studies for my postgrad course, and it was the idea that somehow, how could an organic orchard be ranked lower on sustainability than a conventional orchard?
Yeah.
Because that kind of really challenged my kind of preconceptions.
Yeah.
And so basically it was all, you know, the study was one study. It was kind of there were one or two studies that were outliers and they weren't perfect, you know, when you look at the actual detail. But yeah, basically the Soil Association permit in certain circumstances synthetic chemicals that obviously aren't ideal. So I think in polytunnel growing as well, I think maybe there's some stuff permitted.
So what's permitted by the Soil Association?
Yeah, so I think there's four products that they approve. This is from memory. I'm not kind of like.
No, that's okay.
It's not like, but I think there's 4 products they approve, and they either contain sulfur or copper-based synthetic sort of fungicide and pesticide. Maybe I think maybe fungicide. Okay. And yeah, so if you're buying an organic apple. For me, it's just someone who's been buying organic fruit and produce. I was quite surprised to learn that, you know, actually there's great value on knowing where you're getting the apples from and your fruit from, and not necessarily trusting the Soil Association, completely, you know, because it's a different product really, potentially, if you're considering the ecological aspect that Paul's flagged up there, it kills everything. And so, the crucial thing is the scab is the big thing they're really targeting with the chemical, because it's the appearance, it's the blemishing that it leads to. Does that answer your question? Sorry.
All right, excellent. I'm gonna quickly go off. So just to close, thanks for listening, everyone. And there's some stuff here: Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and if you want to follow what we're doing, it's all there. I'll put a link to this slideshow in the chat. And yeah, I'm going to look forward to hearing the rest of the presentations.